Hello again. This I'm going to talk about the money power. Money power is a term that Martin Van Buren used in referring to the big bankers who created the money. And it's banknotes, private banknotes. But Jackson had famously refused to recharter the privately owned national bank that Hamilton had saddled us with. Um, and it plunged the nation into a deep depression because they failed to issue directly any U.S. money to keep the economy going. The money power knows how to wage monetary war. Money and power are two sides of the same coin, and because all the money is created as interest-bearing debt, interest costs are buried in the prices of all the goods and services we buy, beginning with the supply of raw materials, processing, shipping, wholesaling, retailing, all required borrowed money. On average, 50% of the prices we pay for goods and services are due to capital costs, which is interest going to the banks, going to the wealthy. As former World Health Organization director Margaret Chan explained, most of her organization's funding comes from private donors, and they decide what the funding is to be spent on. In other words, only money talks. Those who fund the WHO tell it what to do. And this is true not only of the WHO, but of nearly every public and private institution in the world, including governments. As the 2014 Princeton study on political influence by Gillens and Page proved, the great historian, uh, you know, and the great historian Lord Acton pointed out as well over 100 years ago that power corrupts. And the power he was referring to was accumulated money. And he continued that absolute power corrupts absolutely. And here he was referring to the power to create money, which is a public power that the commercial banks of the finance industry usurped from our government through legislative sleight of hand in 1913. They have steadily increased their power and control over the world ever since. As Lord Acton said, the issue which has swept down the centuries and which will have to be fought sooner or later is the people versus the banks.